services have reduced service between Newport and Cardiff Central with disruption on multiple routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9:30 on Tuesday, the 4th of August, live across the United Kingdom, Britain's Newsroom, with Andrew Pierce and Miriam Cates.
Well, killers walk free. Rapists will be blocked from the prison early release scheme, but criminals guilty of manslaughter will be freed, including those who killed PC Andrew Harper. Here's what the Prime Minister said 2 weeks ago.
I feel for the family it's an appalling crime that was committed. The main perpetrator will not be subject to any early release.
Yes, Andy Burnham has reached an uncomfortable compromise. Rapists won't be released early from prison, but killers will. Will it be enough to save the collapsing prison system? Find out more with me very soon.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andy Burnham has gone on holiday just 15 days after he became Prime Minister.
But you open it up, you'll be a wealthy country. You keep it closed, you're going to be a bankrupt country, which is what you are now. Essentially,
President Trump tells GB News that Andy Burnham must open up the North Sea and that he hopes to have a great relationship with the new Prime Minister. Good luck with that.
I'm not going to tell him how to run his country, but I can tell you, immigration is an incredible problem for Europe. You're allowing people in that in many cases are not going to help you. I'm going to be nice, they're not going to help you.
Reform UK says it would use the Royal Navy to stop the small boats. Lots of criticism overnight, though. Is the plan workable?
If the Royal Navy is not there to protect this country from invasion, then frankly, I can't see what its purpose is.
And will Reform UK's Nigel Farage and Restore Britain's Rupert Lowe attempt to make a pact? Will the talks take place as early as today?
And fuel theft soars. £200,000 worth of fuel has been stolen from UK forecourts every day since the start of the Iran oil crisis.
Those fuel numbers are eye-watering, aren't they?
They are. are, although I was looking at the figures yesterday and I think it the increase reflects the price of petrol going up. So about the same amount of litres are being stolen. I mean, that's still terrible, but obviously the value of it has gone up. But it does show just how expensive fuel has become, and it may continue to increase.
Well, filling the family car can now be, what, nearly £100?
Oh, yes, easily, especially if you've got a big old diesel like I have. It's very expensive.
And, of course, prices have gone up again because of the conflict in the Middle East. So, as ever, tell us what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Andrew, Miriam, thank you. The top stories this morning. People jailed for rape, serious child sex offences and grooming will be excluded from the upcoming early release scheme the government's announced. It comes after Prime Minister Andy Burnham responded to backlash to the plan, which was initiated by the Starmer administration with the goal of easing prison overcrowding by putting it on pause and launching an urgent review. Elsewhere, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has called for emergency talks amid growing tensions between EU member states after almost 70,000 Moroccans poured into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta last week. Today, EU interior ministers will have emergency talks by video conference to discuss the issue. And President Donald Trump exclusively told GB News he hopes to have a great relationship with Prime Minister Andy Burnham, but that he must get control of energy and immigration.
I think we're going to have a very good relationship. We'll see. I'm not going to tell him how to run his country, but I can tell you, immigration is an incredible problem for Europe. You're allowing people in that in many cases are not going to help you. I'm going to be nice. They're not going to help you.
Those are your headlines at 9:30. More from me at 10 o'clock.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pierce and Miriam Kate.
Well, the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, is discovering how difficult being in government really is after it emerged that two men convicted over the 2018 killing of police officer Andrew Harper will still be eligible for early release from prison as soon as October.
However, under these changes, rape and child sexual offences will be added to the list of crimes that are ineligible for early release. But those guilty of manslaughter, as Andrew said, will be allowed to walk free early.
It's PC Andrew Harper's widow has already said that she is appalled and horrified by the fact that her husband's killers will be released early. And remember, after his killing, the government changed the law. They brought in Harper's Law so that people who were found guilty of murdering or killing emergency workers were subjected to a mandatory sentence, life sentence. But because you can't apply these laws retrospectively, so it won't apply to
So if that crime happened now, they would be jail for life, but
they would.
Not now.
Let's talk to Amy Clary, who's...
This is a quote from Amy Clary. She's a solicitor who specialised in child sexual exploitation, represented some of the children who have been groomed. As she said, today's announcement shows that when survivors, campaigners and those working with victims speak with one voice, change can happen. However, it remains unclear what the government determines a serious child sexual offence is, and this needs clarifying urgently.
And we still know that child pornographers can be released early, and that perpetrators of domestic violence, normally men, can be released early, and there's real concern about that because often the perpetrators of domestic violence go back and attack the woman again and again. So there's a lot of women going to be feeling very nervous.
Indeed. And we're joined in the studio by GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley. And Olivia, just to what Andrew was saying, a lot of these criminals who are being released early are now going to have to be monitored very extensively, perhaps because they're domestic abusers, as Andrew said, they won't be allowed to go near their victims. It's going to take up a lot of police time to monitor the people who have been released early.
Well, it absolutely is. And Andy Burnham has said in order to enact this compromise, he is going to up the number of electronic tags used, for example, example, change the boundaries for chemical castration for people who've been accused of child sexual offences. I think that question that solicitor raised there was a really interesting one. What counts as a serious child sex offence? What's a not serious child sex offence? So that is something which Andy Burnham is going to have to clarify quite soon. I think this is a perfect example, as you mentioned in the introduction there, of governing being much, much harder than trying to run a campaign to be leader of the Labour Party. Obviously, nobody likes the early release scheme. Labour backbenchers don't like it. Conservatives don't like it. The public very definitely don't like it. But the prison population, the prison system is at risk of collapse. It has been for the last sort of 5-6 years. Just to put some numbers on it, there are about 89,500 places for prisoners in the UK. At the moment, nearly 86,000 of those places are filled. And predictions from the Ministry of Justice say that by November, the prison system could be completely collapsing. That's not Labour's fault, exactly. It's been the case for many years, and actually that is why Labour brought in this early release scheme back in 2024. Andy Burnham was really hoping that he could water down the early release scheme and take all of these people, killers, rapists, child sexual offenders, out of it. Clearly, looking at the numbers with his people, he's realised that that won't be possible. So he's reached this very uncomfortable and difficult compromise. Let's just hear what the Justice Secretary had to say on the round this morning.
We've looked again. We have been able to, as you said, remove rapists, to remove child sex abusers from scope of that release from prison. However, you know, we would like to have gone further, but we can't. This is as far as we can go and still have prison places. And I know that's very disappointing and upsetting to victims and their families, but it's the best we could manage at this time.
The best we could manage at this time, clearly not what they wanted to do. And I think what's going to happen, what we're going to see a lot of in this Andy Burnham premiership, is Andy Burnham coming up against reality again and again with issues like this. Another one which I think is coming very soon down the line is jury trials. David Lammy said that jury trials would be scrapped for all but the most serious of cases. Andy Burnham has indicated that he doesn't like that policy. He wants to see jury trials continue. I suspect that when he looks at the evidence in more detail, he will see why David Lammy did what he did and have to try and find some awkward compromise just like this one. And that is going to be another almighty row between him and his backbenchers. And I expect, again, a huge public backlash.
I think there will be. Olivia, it's very good to talk to you. We're going to talk now to the former Metropolitan Police Officer and author, Graham Whettone. Graham, good morning. This is, of course, very difficult. The prisons are filled to overflowing, but you and I have discussed this before. The Prime Minister's alluded to it. He's going to look at what they do about the large number of foreign prisoners in our jails. Is it between 10 and 11,000? Kick them out. You relieve a lot of the problems, and then you are not allowing child pornographers and men and women guilty of manslaughter to be released early.
Yeah, good morning to you both. I completely agree. I think that actually you need to read them here. They've gone part way. Olivia just mentioned that, a compromise. I don't feel this is a compromise. Harper's Law, which makes a mandatory life sentence for those who kill emergency workers, came in after Andrew's death, as a result of Andrew's death. I think we need to look at the individual cases, case-by-case basis. They mention these broad brush titles about we're going to keep rapists in prison and serious child sex offences, but they haven't qualified what the serious, what makes serious. Yeah. But they're also now going to release those convicted of serious domestic abuse type cases, which puts increased pressure on the probation service to manage these offenders when they're back out in society. And it also puts pressure on policing to make sure those victims who are then at risk because their offender is back out and free on reoffending again. So it puts a huge pressure on the whole system. It doesn't actually alleviate the real problems that society has.
It is a relief, though, isn't it, Graham, for the grooming gang victims? They have been raising concerns for some time about what it meant for their perpetrators to be released early, but it wasn't until the PC Harper case came to Andy Burnham's attention that he paused this scheme. They are relieved today. Obviously, it would be better if these criminals served their full sentences, but nevertheless, better to serve 2/3 than a half. But why do you think the government has come up with this particular compromise? Why are they focusing on the grooming gang offences and child sexual offences rather than the others? Is it for technical reasons, or do they see the public outcry, I suppose, over these offences?
I think it's a great question, and credit where it's due. They are keeping those offenders inside until they're eligible for the right release at the right time. Albeit, I'm of the opinion they should actually serve their full sentence for those types of offences. I think they're so serious that you shouldn't get time off for whatever, call it good behaviour or whatever, or because the prison population is so huge and the actual system cannot cope with the numbers in. Andrew made a great point about the foreign prisoners that we're keeping, about 10 to 11,000. That should be looked at. But I think the justice system needs to look at this almost and I know it's difficult. Nothing is easy in government, in policing, in justice system, but look at these almost on a case-by-case basis. You can't put these broad brush titles in. We're going to keep these type of offenders in when you don't know the details of the case. Each case is different. The grooming gangs deserve to be inside, as do child sex offenders, but I'd argue so do those convicted of manslaughter and serious domestic abuse, whichever, however you categorise the serious label they're putting on this. You're putting people back out in society who could possibly reoffend. You're putting victims at risk and having to look over their shoulders again much sooner than they expected to. They felt they were going to be safe for a significant period of time. You are removing that and putting huge pressures on probation, policing, and your victims. Where's the justice for victims in these measures? Look at the prison system again. Look at who you've got inside. It should be, my view as a police officer was I wanted to lock up and put away people that were a risk to the public, make the public safe. People you arrest and put before the courts who aren't convicted of violent or serious offences, give them some sort of non-custodial sentence. Prisons are likely to have a significant number of people inside who are not a risk to the public. Have a look at those cases.
Well, and Graham, I would think instantly in the aftermath of Southport, those terrible Southport killings, people were jailed for things they put on social media in a moment of madness. What were they doing in prison for 1, 2, or even 3 years?
I completely agree. That wasn't the right message either. Yes, they needed some sort of punishment, etc., convicted, etc., given a sentence, but something that balanced the crime, in inverted commas, that they had committed. They were not at risk to the public not at risk by somebody being out and about, but we reacted so quickly to those measures. Knee-jerk reaction again, prison populations, prison places taken up by people who were not at risk to the public at all. So I think they need to look at this again, review the cases, these broad brush labels, we're going to keep these type of people in prison, but not those. I think you need to look almost on a case-by-case basis. Look at the impacts on the victim, listen to the victims. They're the ones that are affected by these crimes. What do they want to happen? And is that achievable?
Very good advice. It's Graham Wetton, former Met police officer and author. The thing is, he's right. And also you think about a lot of blue-collar crime. It's fraud, financial fraud maybe. But those people are banged up, but they're not a threat to people's physical presence. A child, somebody who's a wife beater is. A child pornographer is a real threat to a child, in my view.
It does call into question, doesn't it, what we think prison is for? Because it is to keep the public safe, no doubt about that. But it is about punishing and it is about deterring. So you can't just give no hard shit. You commit a fraud, for example, that can have a serious impact on someone's life. There should be a punishment. But at a time of emergency like now, like you say, perhaps that's the right thing to do. Interesting, I know some of the grooming gang victims, of course, very relieved that their offenders are not going to be released early now. But some discussion about why these men are getting determinate sentence in the first place. Shouldn't they be getting indeterminate sentences so that they're only released if and when they're deemed not to be a risk to the public? Whereas currently they are going to be released, whether that's full term, 2/3, half, that's up to the government. But they will be released, and perhaps they shouldn't be.
But, I was thinking, near where I live in North London, the police station there has been closed for at least 10 or 12 years. It will be done up, sold for redevelopment at some point. There must be loads of buildings like that. It wouldn't take much to knock them into shape, and you could put prisoners in them. And if it's a bit uncomfortable, you know what?
That's what prison's for, isn't it?
That's what prison's for. It's not meant to be a holiday camp. Let's just get a bit tougher about it.
Well, someone who's not gone quite to a prison holiday camp, but has gone on holiday, is the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. He's jetted off on holiday just 15 days into the job.
Must need the rest. Up next, children are waiting for 18 months or more to be adopted as there is a shortage of approved families. We're going to tell you why.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heat is building and intensifying across central and eastern parts of Europe through the next few days. Fine for many parts of Europe, but the risk of thunderstorms for the Alps and a few scattered elsewhere in many parts. I think for the Canary Islands, mostly dry with sunny spells and feeling hot here. 1 or 2 showers and thunderstorms for northern and eastern parts of Spain, otherwise hot sunshine. But the temperatures across Italy into Croatia, more especially into Hungary and Bulgaria, really quite high for the time of year, up into the high 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, Charlie, as most of the viewers know, I would be involved in agriculture. This isn't quite agriculture. It's quite close to it, the cousins of. A lot of things that go on in agriculture are on display here. Thousands of people coming to this site, Ragley Hall, just about 45 minutes out of Birmingham.
We are the modern ruralists, and here today we have the craft yard. We've got 9 different crafts, all demonstrating what they're up to. Here we have the wheelwrights, and they're bonding a wheel here. So this is an ancient craft that's been going for about. Barney Murray's a bit of a legend, quite frankly. He's the national champion, master dry stone waller, comes from North Wales, and he's a bit of a Thor lookalike. So he's quite popular.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, at 16 minutes past 8, the annual bike ride from Yorkshire to London is taking place today, aiming to honour the legacy of the Batley and Spen Labour MP Joe Cox, who was murdered by a far-right terrorist in June of 2016.
Well, the bike ride aims to champion a cause she was passionate about, as this year marks the 10th anniversary of her tragic death.
Kim, if we can just start with you, what is your sister's legacy?
Well, there's so much that we've got to be proud of that's been done in Joe's name. It's just been 10 years since she was murdered, and what has kept us going as a family has been the way that so many amazing people, including people like this amazing man, have done things in Joe's name to show what our country is really about. And you've got all these amazing people today from all different backgrounds, all walks of life, celebrating the things that we have in common, not agreeing on everything.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
It's a difficult question. Honestly, I don't think I would at this rate, because I think the government tracks, when we say we're fighting for Britain, what are we actually fighting for? The concept of Britain, I don't think exists anymore. When I look at Britain, when I go outside, it doesn't seem to be very British. And I think the core demographic of the people who would normally fight, these white working class boys who, you know, have been fighting for Britain, who we expect just to sacrifice their life in a fight, you know, they've been demonised for decades and decades by the government, by our education system, by the media. Economically, they've been disadvantaged. So why would we expect them to risk their lives when we've demonised them for so long and took them for granted for so long? And this concept of Britain fighting for the British government, you know, the British government has betrayed us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, it's 10 to 10. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. Now, it's 100 years since England gave adoption a proper legal framework, but today the charity Coram warns approved adoptive families are in worrying decline.
There are apparently 3,010 children on waiting list, but only 1,350 approved families available, which means these little ones are presumably going to be kept in care.
Of course, this is a really important story to you, Andrew, isn't it? Because you were adopted aged 3.
3. Yeah, I lived in a Catholic orphanage called Nazareth House in Cheltenham, and I was very privileged and lucky that Betty and George Pierce adopted me. They had 3 kids already who didn't think I was a horrible little what's-it. Well, they might have done. That's me there in the home. I'm the one on the left, the little boy. And that's the orphanage, Nazareth House. It was pretty bleak, has to be said.
Nuns looked
run by the
after,
nuns.
maybe looked after isn't the right term, but...
And that is my birth mother as a young woman growing up in Ireland. That's Betty and George the first time they took me out for the day. There I am, aged 2.5, in my little red duffel coat and Rupert Baird trousers. That man could be my birth father, but that's to be decided.
That's to be decided.
Yeah.
But you found your birth mother, and
That's her.
Andrew has written Margaret, written all about it in his book, Finding Margaret, which I thoroughly enjoyed reading. I've given away to several friends and family. They've enjoyed reading it. It's a wonderful, uplifting story. I would highly recommend it.
Well, that's kind of you to say so. We're going to talk now to Dame Carol Homden, who's the Chief Executive of Coram, which is the main children's charity. Dame Carol, good morning. How are you? These figures are a bit worrying. Why are there not more families coming forward?
That's an extraordinarily good question, because it hasn't always been true. 10 years ago, we were recruiting about 3 times as many adopters, and indeed our own polling shows that the public is very interested to consider adoption. So why is it falling? We think that it's a combination of cost of living crisis and housing costs, and also the increased access to infertility treatment for people who might otherwise have looked to adopt. But even those things don't add up. So we encourage everyone who thinks they have room in their heart and their homes to come forward and see if adoption might be right for them.
Could it also be, Carol, to do with the age of the children? Because I was just looking back at the figures this morning, and the number of adoptions peaked in the late 1960s. 24,000 children were adopted in 1969. They were almost all babies given up at birth, unwanted pregnancies, teenage pregnancies, those kind of things. Whereas now, I think only 1% of adoption is babies. The vast majority are older children who have been forcibly taken away from their own birth parents because they can't look after them for whatever reason. Do you think that's a reason as well, that perhaps people want to adopt babies and are more nervous about looking at older children, particularly teenagers?
Well, that would be right, but teenagers are almost never adopted.
Okay.
The vast majority of the children waiting are infants. Okay. The average age of adoption is 2, and virtually no children have an adoption order over the age of 5 unless they're in a sibling group, and we want to keep them together. So the situation since the 1960s is dramatically different. We were looking at an era then of very many thousands of children, often very happily adopted, but who could have been cared for in their own families potentially. But there were unwanted pregnancies, there was stigma about unmarried mothers and their children. That is not the case today. Today, these are children who are very young indeed, who have indeed been removed for their own protection. And therefore, there are far fewer of them, but their situation is very much more acute.
What's the answer, Carol, Dame Carol?
I think the answer is for us as a society to wrap our arms around our children and to recognise that it takes a village, and that there are many ways of forming a family, expanding a family, and continuing to develop our families. Now, in order to do that, we really need as a society to be prepared to give adopters and indeed foster carers or kinship carers all the support they need, because the alternatives are all dramatically worse, which is children living in residential institutions or remaining at risk. So specifically, we need to give more support to things like housing. If you're going to adopt 2 children or 3 children, you're going to need to have enough room. Some of these things are self-evident, and they're not beyond the wit of man for us to address. But we have to be determined to do it and to make sure that all our most vulnerable children have the best possible start in life.
Dame Carol Homden, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And it is an incredible thing to be able to do. I've got family members who have adopted, and you are really giving a child a second chance at life, aren't you?
But if you are interested, look at Coram's website, because it is a terrific charity. I've been to visit them, and they do great work there, and they work with all sorts of needy children. And a child is better off with a mum and dad.
Absolutely, and a permanent place.
Yeah, absolutely. Rather than being in care or foster care. And as I speak from experience, it didn't do me any harm, did it?
Absolutely. You're a good advert for it.
There we are.
Well, still ahead on Britain's Newsroom, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage is in talks to strike a pact with Restore Britain. Could it work? Find out soon. This is Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There is a collision on the M23 southbound between junctions 8 and 9 in Reigate. The M25 clockwise is affected by a collision at junction 7 in Merstham. The M2 eastbound between junctions 3 and 4 near Chatham is closed. The A1M between junctions 3 and 4 is closed. North of the border, the M8 SAD-76 southbound at junction 3 is partially blocked following a collision. Across Wales, the A5 at Menai Bridge is closed. And on the trains, Cross Country and Great Western Railway services have reduced service between Newport and Cardiff Central, with disruption on multiple routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We're celebrating a golden summer with your chance to win a real gold bar. That's right, a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 could be yours. We're also going to make sure your finances are fabulous with £60,000 in tax-free cash. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Tuesday the 4th of August. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Killers to walk free from prison early.
Whether we could find an individual way, there simply isn't one. We can only work on offence type. And in this case, we have to look at manslaughter as a whole. We've been able to, as I say, remove rape and to remove child sex abuse, but we've not been able to remove manslaughter.
So there you heard it. Rapists will be blocked from prison early release, but criminals guilty of manslaughter will not be blocked. They will include 2 of the killers of PC Andrew Harper. Here's what the Prime Minister said about that killing just 2 weeks ago.
I feel for the family it's an appalling crime that was committed. The main perpetrator will not be subject to any early release.
Our new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has himself gone off on holiday just 15 days into the job.
But you open it up, you'll be a wealthy country. You keep it closed, you're going to be a bankrupt country, which is what you are now. Essentially, you're a bankrupt country.
So that's President Donald Trump telling GB News that Andy Burnham must open up the North Sea and drill, baby, drill. But he also added he hopes to have a great relationship with our new Prime Minister.
I'm not going to tell him how to run his country, but I can tell you, immigration is an incredible problem for Europe. You're allowing people in that in many cases are not going to help you. I'm going to be nice, they're not going to help you.
Well, one party who does have an idea is Reform UK. They say they would use the Royal Navy to stop the small boats, but after lots of criticism overnight, is it workable?
If the Royal Navy is not there to protect this country from invasion, then frankly, I can't see what its purpose is.
So will Reform UK's Nigel Farage and Restore Britain's Rupert Lowe attempt to make a pact And could the talks take place as soon as today?
Meanwhile, fuel theft has soared. £200,000 worth of fuel has been stolen from British forecourts every day since the start of the Iran oil crisis. So, President Donald Trump has always got an opinion.
Well, when he said, I'm not going to tell you how to run your country, I suspect he will.
Indeed.
He'll certainly offer his trenchant advice. And look, he's been president second term. We've got a very inexperienced Prime Minister. He says he's going to hopefully get on well with Andy Burnham. It started quite well with Keir Starmer, then went rapidly downhill, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how well the two men get on. But, I mean, they may not have long to find out. Who knows how long Andy Burnham's going to last?
Well, we were talking to Mark Field here yesterday, weren't we, the former minister, and he and I were talking about, is there to be an election around the time announced after the budget, time of the party conference? Burnham's talking about a 10-year plan. 10-year plan? That seems like a plan for a manifesto.
Yeah, exactly. And every budget these days is bad news because the economy is in such dire straits. There's very little chance they can do in one budget. So it would make sense to call a general election before the budget because it won't be popular.
What do you think? Send us your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories at 10 o'clock. People jailed for rape, serious child sex offences and grooming will be excluded from the upcoming early prisoner release scheme the government's announced. It comes after Prime Minister Andy Burnham responded to backlash to the plan, which was initiated by the Starmer administration with the goal of easing prison overcrowding. Mr Burnham has also delayed the start of the scheme from September to October and said he wanted to go even further, but it was not possible without the prison system collapsing, putting the public at much greater risk, he says. The policy has been controversial since the outset, but returned to prominence earlier this month when it emerged a policeman's killers may be among those eligible for early release. PC Andrew Harper was killed in 2019 while responding to a quad bike theft in Berkshire. Shadow Policing Minister Matt Vickers spoke to GB News.
This Labour government have done terrible things, but to release these people early, for those Labour MPs across the country who walk through those lobbies to support this, it is astounding, it is disgraceful, it is disgusting. And actually the other part of this is killers are being released early. He said that he's exempting serious child sexual offenders. Well, what sexual offence against a child isn't serious, and how is he going to pick? In my view, any sexual offence against a child is serious. Any killing is serious, and those people should be locked up and follow the sentences they were given by a judge.
Justice Secretary Alex Norris says he understands the disappointment felt, but it's the best the government can do at this time.
Without these changes, we run out of prison places in October or November of this year. Now, me as a new Justice Secretary, Andy Burnham as a new Prime Minister, have heard the concerns about some of the people possibly involved in this. So we paused it and we've looked again. We have been able to, as you said, remove rapists, to remove child sex abusers from scope of that release from prison. However, you know, we would like to have gone further, but we can't. This is as far as we can go and still have prison places. And I know that's very disappointing and upsetting to victims and their families, but it's the best we could manage at this time.
In other news, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has called for emergency talks amid growing tensions between EU member states after almost 70,000 Moroccans poured into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta last week. Today, EU interior ministers will have emergency talks by video conference to discuss the issue. The scenes in Ceuta have strained relations among some of the EU's 27 member states. In a letter to Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, von der Leyen praised his swift handling of the crisis. Meanwhile, pressure is building upon Andy Burnham to come up with a solution to illegal migrant crisis in Britain, with over 2,000 arrivals since the beginning of his premiership. President Donald Trump exclusively told GB News he hopes to have a great relationship with the Prime Minister Andy Burnham, but also said that he must get control of energy and immigration.
I think we're going to have a very good relationship. We'll see. I'm not going to tell him how to run his country, but I can tell you, immigration is an incredible problem for Europe. You're allowing people in that in many cases are not going to help you. I'm going to be nice. They're not going to help you.
NHS staff are facing a growing wave of racist abuse from patients, according to a new report. Patients have reportedly refused to be treated by a number of healthcare workers, stating their race was the reason why. The Society of Radiographers says incidents have risen noticeably over the past 18 months and is calling on the NHS to formally record and monitor racist abuse. And detectives investigating the fatal stabbing of a 21-year-old student in a North London park have offered a £20,000 reward for information on the whereabouts of a man they urgently wish to trace. The Metropolitan Police have also appealed directly to 22-year-old suspect Jordan CJ, urging him to do the right thing and hand himself in. The force released a picture of Mr. CJ this morning, adding he's known to frequent North London. Finbar Sullivan, a filmmaking student, was stabbed to death during a fight in Primrose Hill in the early evening on the 7th of April. Police said another man in his 20s also suffered injuries, which were not life-threatening or life-changing. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. Sorry, I was expecting the finance report there. We are live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Kate.
I think they've been getting in touch, haven't they?
Yeah, lots of really.
A lot of people are very cross about early release, I'm sure.
They are. Let's start with that then. Moo the trucker says we should give every council worker 2 offenders each, get them working to pay society back. If they don't work, then they end up locked up. There should be harsher prisons than they chose rather than behave and work. And that is a good point. There's a lot of people in prison who potentially could be doing some useful work in society.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And they should be taught to read and write, because a lot of men and women in prison are illiterate.
That's right.
Which is a great shame. Yeah. And they leave illiterate, which means their prospects of getting a job are limited, and then they go back into crime. I mean, prison is about punishment, but it should be about rehabilitation as well.
Absolutely.
I've had mates, quite high-profile mates, who've been in prison, and they spent their time teaching.
Yes.
Teaching
other prisoners. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it does kind of link to the other thing we've been talking about, adoption, because another huge proportion of prisoners have been through the care system.
Yeah, they have. Because
they haven't been able to be adopted for whatever reason. We've been talking about that today. Record number, too few people available to adopt. Sarah Ackroyd says the adoption system is awful. I have relatives that have been going through this slow process and have now stopped due to the slowness of the system and the lack of urgency these agencies have. And yet I know of people who have been forced to convert their houses in case they get given a disabled child, even though they haven't yet been granted a child. But before they're able to adopt, they have to make all these modifications to their house.
In case it's a disabled one.
Yeah, rather than waiting to see the needs of the child.
Yeah.
It does seem unbelievably bureaucratic, and you can see why people get
But
put
also
off.
that's expensive.
Yeah, for everybody involved.
And as Dame Diane was saying, part of the problem is the cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
People just can't afford to adopt a child.
Yeah, indeed.
You then got to make massive adaptations to your house, and they're not
just in case.
Just in case they're disabled.
Tough Old Bird says, we'd like to apply to adopt you, Andrew.
Oh, that's nice.
I will say, though, it will cost you a fortune in rich tea biscuits, Old Bird.
I haven't bought my share for at least 3 weeks, actually. I'm out
We
of
have been on
practice.
holiday.
I have. Now, after a whole 15 days as Prime Minister, Andy Burnham is taking a holiday abroad with his family. Reform's Lee Anderson has called him not a serious leader and said, why didn't he have his holiday beforehand? Or maybe just skip the holiday altogether. I was checking. Keir Starmer did not, in his first few months as Prime Minister, he got in July, Keir Starmer, he did not have a holiday.
Silly man. I think it's a bad idea. I think you should absolutely expect our leaders to take holidays. Do we want them to be burned out and stressed?
No, I agree with that.
And the other thing is, politicians have families too. And imagine if you're the husband or wife or child of somebody senior in public life and you rarely get to see that important family member, and then they cancel the holiday you've been looking forward to for maybe a year or more. I mean, what does it say to the families of people in leadership?
I think he just has to get his messaging right there, because there was a distinct suggestion from number 10, no, he's not going on holiday.
Well, that's daft,
because there's a lot to do. He's got a lot in his in tray. And I do think the timing, Miriam, is appalling. The day it's on our front page is that killers are being released early from our prison. And who else? Child beaters.
Is there ever a good time?
Domestic violence. There's never. But
we look at these front pages every single day. Every single day there's a crisis.
Why make this announcement on the day the Prime Minister's on his plane on his jollies holidays? It does not look good.
The other thing is, though, that with the internet, you can work from absolutely anywhere now. So there are very few crises that could happen that the Prime Minister couldn't be on top of remotely. Of course, he would come back in certain circumstances, but he can be updated all the time. He can be.
But it's similar to what's the Spanish Prime Minister called?
Pedro Sanchez.
Sanchez jetting off. After 60,000 migrants stormed the border to go into that Spanish territory. OK, they got rid of a lot of them, but there's still a few thousand. Now, he went ahead in his holiday. Now, that is a very bad look, because that is a real national security crisis, in my view.
I do think we've got too much into this it's a bad lookism, as some journalist has coined it, because, I mean, Prime Ministers in the past, Winston Churchill, he used to take days and days off to go painting. And
he went painting in Marrakesh, in Morocco.
Exactly. And, you know, of course, Prime Ministers should be working extremely hard. But to be effective, human beings need time off, need time to think, to read, to research things, to reflect. You can't do that if you are working from kind of 6 a.m. till midnight every day without a break.
At least we're spared with this Prime Minister the annual spectacle of the Tony Blair holiday. Do you remember that? It was always a freebie. It was, I mean, once it was at Berlusconi's house. You remember the Italian Prime Minister and his bunga parties?
That is a bad look, Andrew.
And then there was a count and a castle, and they would always come out for a photograph. And you thought, who's paying for this? They never paid for a thing. Like the Prime Minister of the day can't afford his own holiday, particularly when you've got a wife who's a high-powered KC, as Cherie Blair was. It looked terrible.
Well, of course, we don't know where Burnham's gone, but he has made a big thing of being I was going to say he's made a big thing of being a northerner. Maybe he's gone up north.
He's gone abroad somewhere. Perhaps he's gone in search of some elusive sun.
Yes. Maybe he's been watching our travel weather forecast. Well, it's basically hot everywhere. We don't really need a forecast at the moment.
Where's the rain?
Well, moving on, talking of Europe, European ministers are holding emergency talks this morning about border control after 70,000 migrants entered the Spanish territory of Ceuta last week.
Closer to home, Reform UK has announced how it plans to tackle the smuggled boats crisis. Their solution, as you'd have heard yesterday, is to deploy the Royal Navy to return migrants to France. But will this work?
Well, former Royal Navy Commodore Steve Jermy joins us. Steve, good morning. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Lots of controversy about Reform UK's plans for the Royal Navy to essentially rescue migrants at sea and then return them to France. Lots of supporters of this plan, lots of critics of this plan. Where do you stand?
I think it will functionally work. I've been no doubt about this. I remember being at a conference about 15 years ago, and an academic said to me, we can't possibly stop the immigration. Of course, it's not true. We've got a big border. It's called the Channel, and it's 22 miles wide at the narrowest point. But what I think is important, though, is a better integration approach to what we do. At the moment, we've got a mess offshore. So at the moment, you've got Royal Navies capable of doing things and highly capable. You've got Border Force, which works for the Home Office. That's a different maritime organisation. The HMRC have their own organisation as well, the Fishery Protection Organisation. None of the latter things that I've talked about are able to be used in defence. There are no weapons on them, for example. Not saying they should be against migrants, but the point is that we've got a really disaggregated offshore sector and the way we defend our shores. I think it's also the case that we've spent a lot of money in defence in terms of offence. So we spent a lot of money in things like working out how we can better affect operations in Ukraine, which to me looks like a lost war, and a lost sight of our own borders and how we defend ourselves. Essentially what we need is a strong Royal Navy and a strong Royal Air Force, and with both of those, we can do that.
But Steve, if we get into the detail of this, and our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, raised the concern yesterday that how would the Navy, how would Royal Marines, who are armed and trained to use lethal force. How would they persuade non-compliant, unarmed migrants on these very vulnerable dinghies to board their boat if they didn't want to?
Well, I think again, it's a question of being able to turn the back. I mean, having the force there is important, but I would think the last thing we would want to do is to use it. But I think part of it is simply deterrence, and we've seen it work in Australia. The Australians use what I would best call a systems approach, and that's the key to it. It's not just about integrating the offshore forces, and I think they do need integration. I think we're crying out for some sort of integration of all these different government departments, all with different rules of engagement and all with different approaches. But what the Australians have is a much more effective and a much more systemic approach, so that when people are intercepted according to whatever the rules of engagement are dictated by the by the British government, that there's a systems approach and they're taken to places where they can be quickly assessed and decisions made and then put into the system and returned if that's the government's decision. So functionally, it's quite possible. I'm not saying there are easy political decisions here, but functionally, I would say it's relatively straightforward.
Steve Jeremy, former Royal Navy Commodore, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Now, we've got some breaking news, I think. A mega dinghy believed to be carrying 160 migrants has caught fire during an attempt to cross the channel. Search and rescue services were launched around 6 a.m. on Tuesday after the vessel's engine went up in flames in French waters. Well, the peril of these super-sized dinghies. GBNews Home Security Editor Mark White has the details. Mark, this sounds shocking.
This is a major air and sea rescue that's been taking place over the last few hours in French waters, about 10 miles off Boulogne. And you're right, this is a mega dinghy, we understand. It had set off from the port of Dieppe, much, much further down the coast. Yesterday, just before yesterday lunchtime. So it had been in the water for about 18 hours, making its way. It's a taxi boat, effectively, comes up the coast, calls into a number of beaches to take on more migrants. But after 18 hours in the water and with a boat full of, the number we're told, 157 migrants on board, that engine gave way, exploded, caught fire, and then the boat sank. That cast 157 migrants into the sea. And that sparked, of course, that massive air and sea rescue operation that involved Border Security Command vessels, the Eastbourne lifeboat, French naval and Border Patrol assets as well, and helicopters as well from France that flew medics on board the rescue ships to help triage and treat those who were being pulled from the water. Now, we understand that a number of people are suffering the effects of the cold, hypothermia, but as yet, no serious injuries have been reported. There has been ongoing extensive searches of the area around where the boat sank to make sure that everyone is accounted for. But one maritime security source I've been speaking to said, you know, it seems there has been no loss of life. And for that, it is miraculous, given the fact that 157 people were suddenly thrown into the English Channel at once and were in the water for some time because it took a while for all of the rescue assets to get there and to be able to lift them to safety. Now, it might be that there are individuals that are missing, but we haven't got that level of detail as yet from the French authorities it will come from, because this was still just in French waters.
So will they go back to France, these people?
They are being taken as we speak to Boulogne. British vessels were taking them to Boulogne as well, but we understand they may be actually transferring them to French ships, and the French will take them to Boulogne-sur-Mer, where rescue services and the authorities are waiting on the pier side there, again, to treat those coming off, assess them for their injuries, and take care of the other migrants as well.
And I imagine, even as we speak, another vessel the same size, 160-odd people, is probably setting sail for the White Cliffs of Dover.
Well, you see, this is I think, the very concerning situation that we find ourselves in. This government has been slapping itself on the back recently because it says that the operation to put more police on the beaches further north is having a real result. It's reducing the number of people smuggling attempts. Now, that may or may not be true in the fullness of time. We're not, you know, we're halfway through the year now and still lots of really good summer months to go. So let's see where we go. What is true is that people smugglers have adapted and changed their tactics to try and deal with the fact there are more police further north by launching much further south. And as a consequence, they are launching often bigger vessels like the mega dinghies and cramming more and more people on. So this, you could say, is a direct consequence of the tactics of putting more police further north, is the people smugglers are now adopting more and more dangerous tactics. You know, at the end of the day, of course, the people smugglers are the ones to blame for the number of migrants they smuggle on these dinghies. We shouldn't absolve the migrants, the illegal immigrants, of blame themselves. No. Remember, these are people who seek out these criminal gangs, pay them thousands of pounds with a view to smuggling them across various borders, including the English Channel.
All right, well, that's Mark White. He'll keep us up to date on that breaking news. 157 people plunged into the English Channel. So far, it seems nobody's dead. Amazing.
Thank you, Mark. Well, coming up next, the Prime Minister blocks rapists from the prison early release scheme, but criminals guilty of manslaughter will walk free.
We'll be going through that and more with Paul Richards and Piers Possinger. They're our panel. There they are. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And tune in as your favourite presenters are live across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Tune in this Thursday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 26 minutes past 10. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So Tory leader Kemi Badenoch has reacted to the early release prisoner scheme, which could see PC Andrew Harper's killers, or two of them at least, set free in the next few weeks. This is what she had to say.
This time last week, I sat on a panel where I had women who had been victims of horrific sexual assaults and violence telling the country that their rapists and their abusers were about to be released very, very early. And the fact is the government had to be forced into this by me and so many other people bringing the victims out. They shouldn't have had to do that. And yet still, killers are going to be released, like the killers of PC Andrew Harper. I'm here, out with police. I see the hard work they do. The idea that one of their killers will be out on early release, or some of their killers, I should say, out on early release is horrific. Labour have been too slow to do this. Andy Burnham has been too slow. I put an amendment down on legislation to stop the release of rapists and paedophiles. Labour MPs voted against it. They're only doing this now because of the pressure which I and others, Conservatives and others, have been putting on them, and we will continue to do so. We do not want to see the early release of killers. I'm glad that the government wants to stop the release of rapists, but they need to get on with it, not just talk about it.
Well, we're joined now by our panel, the political commentator Piers Pottinger and former Labour Special Advisor and columnist Paul Richards here in the studio. Piers, obviously Kemi Badenoch congratulating herself and many others on forcing the PM into this partial U-turn. But the problem's been a long time coming. We know that jails have been full for 20 years. Previous government didn't build enough prison places. Nobody wants prisons in their backyards. I mean, this is a collective failure, isn't it?
Yes, and it's something I actually have felt strongly about for a very long time. Prison reform properly is needed in this country, like so much. So many things that were created a long time ago. The world has moved on and change needs to happen. I mean, the Labour Party started the NHS in 1948. A lot's happened since then, but they're obsessed with keeping the original model, which everyone knows is broken. With prisons, the same. But the worst thing about this latest spiel from Andy Burnham is that he actually said about the victims, he wrote in today's Telegraph, and he wrote these actual words about why it wouldn't be popular with the victims of some people being released. He said, "I understand their anger and anxiety. More than that, I share it." Now, if he does, but if he actually means that, why is he doing it? I'm sorry, there are a lot of holes in what he's announced. I think it's a step in the right direction, but there's much more needs to be done. And when I heard this morning on the radio coming in, a junior minister talking about how there was nothing more they could do because of the situation, that's an admission they haven't got any ideas about how to fix it.
Yeah, well, we talked earlier, Paul, to a former somebody involved in the penal service. There are 11,000 foreign prisoners in our jails, but the Prime Minister has alluded to the fact we've got to look at that. We could have been looking at that a bit sooner.
We do need to look at that. The danger will be that those countries will return Brits abroad in prisons and just do a one-for-one deal. We'll be no further forward. I think that Burnham does have empathy. So when I hear those words, I believe them. I think he does genuinely feel for other people's pain. I think that's one of his strengths. But he's inherited a situation that he's grappling with. I think he's got a grip on it. So he hasn't just done what the officials told him to do, which is to let these people out. He has said, hang on a minute, there are people who really should be behind bars. But it's a decision that should have been taken 10 years ago to build more prisons, and to pick up Piers' point about reform is to get more rehabilitation in place too, because so many of the prisoners that are coming out are going straight back in, and that's where the blockages are. There's people coming out for a few months and then being rearrested.
We have made no attempt at proper rehabilitation of prisoners for a very long time, almost permanently, actually.
Thousands of these prisoners, Piers, are illiterate.
Yes, absolutely.
They go into prison illiterate and they leave illiterate because they're banged up in a cell for 23 hours a day. There's no opportunity to teach
absolutely.
them, not the resources.
And I mean, the prison guards are virtual prisoners themselves.
Well, that's
and they're paid
job, isn't it?
hardly any... They're paid a basic minimum wage, if that.
And
so the calibre of the average prison guard is about the same as the average
prisoner,
terrible
and
job,
probably lower in most cases. So what I would say is that it's serious. I mean, we should have a Royal Commission on prison reform, a proper look, and bite the bullets. The trouble is there are no votes in helping prisoners. No one, the majority of the public don't care about prisoners until it affects them.
Yeah.
I bought a coffee the other day from a shop that it was a scheme where it was ex-prisoners learning how to be baristas. It was a charity, but you know, it was a commercial enterprise, and I thought wasn't that a brilliant way to get people back on the street?
I know the place in Piccadilly.
Right, and it was just a really good idea, I think, to sort of. And why can't we do that across all the different trades and professions?
Because the best way to be rehabilitated is to get a job and a routine, and it's hard to get a job with a criminal record.
Exactly. And it's to show them that so many of them have come from broken homes, have come from situations which are far from normal, and they don't understand that a normal, civilised life is possible.
And this is not bleeding heart liberalism either.
No.
It's actually in the national interest.
It is, of course it is.
We're going to have to leave it there, but I think there are some prisoners who are very dangerous, should never be released.
Sure,
but at the same time,
I don't want them serving me coffee.
Exactly, lesser crimes we need to work.
Right.
I just want to make one point. In the reshuffle, and I think it was a real blow, James Timpson, who was the prisons minister, came in from outside. His company, Timpson's, employs a lot of ex-convicts. They do great rehabilitation work. He left the government. And he was the longest-serving prisons minister in 15 years. He'd been there for 2 years. How sad was that?
It is sad, and it's indicative of the problem. No one's taking it properly seriously.
Well, lots more to come from you guys in an hour. Thank you very much. First of all, though, we've got your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories at 10:30. People jailed for rape, serious child sex offences and grooming will be excluded from the upcoming early prisoner release scheme the government's announced. It comes after Prime Minister Andy Burnham responded to backlash to the plan initiated by the Starmer administration with the goal of easing prison overcrowding by putting it on pause and launching an urgent review. A major air and sea rescue has taken place in the English Channel this morning after a so-called mega dinghy sank, tipping almost 160 illegal immigrants into the sea. Multiple British and French rescue vessels were called to the scene around 8 a.m. after the engine on the giant dinghy is reported to have caught fire. Meanwhile, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has called for emergency talks amid growing tensions between EU member states after almost 70,000 Moroccans poured into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta last week. Today, EU interior ministers will have emergency talks by video conference to discuss the issue. And President Trump exclusively told GB News he hopes to have a great relationship with Prime Minister Andy Burnham, but also says that he must get control of energy and immigration.
I think we're going to have a very good relationship. We'll see. I'm not going to tell him how to run his country, but I can tell you immigration is an incredible problem for Europe. You're allowing people in that in many cases are not going to help you. I'm going to be nice. They're not going to help you.
Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Coming up next, we'll bring you some of the balmy classroom reforms that Labour are hoping to bring into schools. Don't miss it. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A warm and humid day for many of us, especially towards the south and the east. Rain or showers, especially towards the north and the west, with thunderstorms for some. It's actually a damp start to the day for Scotland, for Northern Ireland. Heavy and persistent rain. Showers, meanwhile, moving through parts of Wales and the west of England. And the rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland breaks it into showers with thunderstorms likely for Northern Ireland. These slow-moving storms could cause impacts through the afternoon and evening, especially given the time of year. Drier towards the east and southeast, and with some sunshine, and still another day with temperatures into the low 30s and high humidity. It's going to feel really quite warm. Meanwhile, not feeling warm at all across northern Scotland. Persistent rain and low cloud expected with a keen breeze from the east. Here are these lively showers across central and southern Scotland with some rumbles of thunder mixed in. Likewise, slow-moving thunderstorms continuing into the evening for Northern Ireland. Hit and miss showers, central and western England as well as Wales, interspersed by some brighter spells, but the best of the sunshine as we end the day. East Anglia and the southeast, with the warmth continuing overnight. Another humid, muggy night to come for many. Areas of clouds swirling around the United Kingdom and some showers popping up just about anywhere. Very little meaningful rainfall in the south and southeast where it's most needed, but there could be a few drops here and there. More persistent wet weather continuing for the north of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And a warm start to Wednesday, but actually during Wednesday we see this change in wind direction, west to northwesterlies, bringing a fresher feel. Still mostly dry for England and Wales, sunny spells, and aside from a few showers in the north and west, a mostly fine day. Scotland and Northern Ireland, meanwhile, damp weather continuing and feeling on the cool side, fresher conditions towards the southeast.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There is a collision on the M23 southbound between junctions 8 and 9 in Reigate. The M2 eastbound between junctions 3 and 4 near Chatham is closed. The A1M between junctions 3 and 4 is closed. The A428 is closed after the A1 near St Neots. North of the border, the M74 northbound has lane restrictions at junction 5 near Raith Interchange, causing queues. Across Wales, the A5 at Menai Bridge is closed. And on the trains, cross-country and Great Western Railway services have reduced service between Newport and Cardiff Central, with disruption on multiple routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 21 minutes to 11. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom.
Well, the government says, in the form of the Education Secretary,
Lucy Powell.
Lucy Powell, that's right, who we thought was going to be Deputy Prime Minister, just as well she isn't. It's time to rip up what she calls the educational straitjacket imposed on England's schools.
Well, the Education Secretary is launching a review of the curriculum, arguing that too many children are being failed by an overemphasis on academic achievement.
And what she means is too much emphasis on maths, English, history, and get this, spelling. What's wrong with having children who leave school who can spell?
Yeah.
And she wants more emphasis on technical subjects. I understand that, but why can't you do both?
Absolutely. And where would you be without those basic skills?
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yeah. We're going to talk to Christine Cunniff, who is head teacher at LVS Ascot. Morning.
Good morning.
Well, I'm a bit worried.
It made me laugh when you couldn't remember a name, because you've had so many in the last 5 years.
Well, there is that. I was just trying to think, is it still Bridget Phillips? But I'm a bit worried about her, to be honest, Christine, because I think the ability to spell, the ability to do maths, English, history, are really, really important. I think they're the building blocks of our education. Of course, if you want to learn technical subjects as well, but she appears to be saying one not t'other.
It makes you wonder whether it's a new person in post wants to make a headline. But I think what we've got to do is, when you come up with these things, you've got to think, how am I going to get there? Because, I'd like to be walking on the moon in 5 years, but Christine, how are you going to get there? And the reality is, when you've been in education the length of time I have, you see this every decade. You see these ideas come up and they never come to fruition. And this one in particular, I agree there needs to be a change, but there needs to be a balance. But also, where are the schools going to get the facilities? Because to do this, you're going to need specialist equipment. You're going to need specialist people. We can't get teachers as it is. Where are we going to find engineers and technology people that we can afford to employ? AI is, changing things on a daily basis. So you're about to change something and it's going to change again. And then the next thing we know, the government would have changed and we've gone round in a circle and come up with something else.
Why do people on the left have such low expectations of what children can do? I remember when Michael Gove brought in his primary school reforms, which involved teaching children to learn their times tables by rote again, as they did in the past. Lots and lots of those on the left and teachers themselves said this isn't fair, children can't do it, and yet They absolutely can. They have done. They've managed this. They've managed to learn their 12 times tables by the age of 9. Children are much more capable than many on the left give them credit for. Why is that?
I think what we underestimate human beings totally, because we have the ability to grasp anything that's thrown at us, but if we're not thrown it, we don't know what we're capable of doing. And it's the same for adults it is for children. So I think you don't aim for the lowest, you don't aim for the middle, you aim as high as you can, and we all see where we land in life, because there's a place for all of us in life. I've seen excellent practice across the world where this vocational system works, but they've thrown extraordinary amounts of money at it, time, commitment, and real commitment and expertise.
I don't think she's got her facts right either, Christine, because she blames the government and Michael Gove's reforms for the vast number of what we call NEETs, not in employment, educational training, over 1 million. These are aged 18 to 24. An absolute scandal when you think how many jobs there are in the system. But I was looking at the figures. When the Tories left office, the youth unemployment was 13.8%. It's gone up since Labour came to power, and it's now above 16.4%, way above the EU average. So that's since Labour came to power. So those reforms that she attacked Michael Gove for doing were actually doing some good.
Well, Michael Gove did a lot of good for education, without a doubt. I think what we're seeing is, and I'd hate to go back to COVID as well, but attitudes to education have changed since COVID. The amount of children out of school is absolutely extraordinary. I think it's over 130,000 children now. And we're also telling children every year, a third of them will fail English and maths. We're all sitting the same exams at the same time for the same, and we're all unique. It's about time we had change, but meaningful change, and tell people they're not failures and there is a place for them in the workplace, and the government should support businesses to get these children into employment, and that's when schools can help out as a partnership, but give them the vocational skills that they need to do it.
I wonder if the problem is that people are becoming too polarised on this issue. There are those who think that school is there purely for academic purposes, English, maths, science, history, learning by rote, and there are those who think it should be child-led and vocational. Isn't the truth that children are like sponges until a certain age? We should feed them as much knowledge as they possibly can take in, but then after that, there should be a lot more freedom to go down different routes.
Absolutely. And if you give the children the confidence and you give them the right tools in the early part of their childhood, then they will go out and they will develop themselves, find interests as well. Because, again, we shouldn't be going into jobs and careers that we think our parents think we should go into or our teachers think we should go into. You've got to go into something you love because you want to do a job. I love going to work every morning. I enjoy my job. I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. You have to be passionate about what you do. We've got to spark that passion. And it's about time that passion was reignited with these partnerships between schools and businesses. Government should really leave it to the people that know what they're doing, form an all-parliamentary group. Let's move on for the kids, because every year this doesn't change. The children suffer and the figures go up.
Absolutely right.
Well, Christine Cunniff, head teacher at LVS Ascot, thank you so much for your time this morning. And Andrew, I visited a brilliant school a couple of years ago, King Alfred School in Dudley, which is sadly closed down now because of Labour's VAT reforms.
Yes.
But it was a lowest possible fee school, no entry requirements, taking small children, giving them what they call a classical education, so teaching them to learn things off by heart, times tables, poetry, those kind of things. What these small children could do was absolutely incredible. And you just think they are set up for life. And I remember the head teacher saying to me, we're obsessed these days with critical thinking, but if you don't know anything, what are you supposed to think critically about?
Yeah.
You've got to learn the knowledge first before you can analyse it.
Of course you do. Tampering and fiddling with education. Leave it alone.
Indeed. And Andrew Stock says, not much use to any employer, are you, if you're unable to read, write and have basic math skills?
Well, and the spelling, for God's sake. Why does she say... She thinks it's destructive for children. It's not. Indeed. It's destructive if they can't spell.
Impeccable spelling on our auto cue today, by the way.
Yeah, it's not often. They're not brilliant with apostrophes in our auto cue, has to be said.
Fortunately, the viewers can't see the apostrophes.
No, fortunately. Now, with this boiling weather, we'll be checking on our farmers because it's going to be pretty difficult for farmers, and there's talk of food shortages and soaring prices. Of course there are.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, go anywhere in Europe. But here's the confirmation.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun. Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
The heat is building and intensifying across central and eastern parts of Europe through the next few days. Fine for many parts of Europe, but at the risk of thunderstorms for the Alps and a few scattered elsewhere in many parts. I think for the Canary Islands, mostly dry with sunny spells and feeling hot here. 1 or 2 showers and thunderstorms for northern and eastern parts of Spain, otherwise hot sunshine. But the temperatures across Italy into Croatia, more especially into Hungary and Bulgaria, really quite high for the time of year, up into the high 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Yes, the Malaysian government has announced that it will renew the search for Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, which disappeared 10 years ago without a trace.
Yes, the plane was carrying 239 people from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Previous attempts to locate the plane have all failed, leaving the families of those on board without any kind of closure.
Well, for more on this, let's speak to Terry Tozer, a former airline pilot and author of Confessions of an Airline Pilot, Why Planes Crash. Terry, you sound like the perfect man to talk to about this, because this is perhaps the biggest aviation mystery of our modern age.
Yeah, it is, and obviously a great tragedy as well. It's good to know that they're going to have another crack at trying to find it.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is just health and safety gone mad. It's not the role of public authorities to be telling people what's for their best interest. And the reality is it's probably better to take the chance of a tree branch falling on you than going out in the sun and getting getting burnt in the sun. But the reality is the reason why these councils are saying you've got to stay out of underneath the trees is they don't want anybody to get struck by a branch which they have a liability to, whilst they don't have a liability for anybody getting sunburnt. So it's all to do with public liability. I mean, if you look at East Cheshire Council, for example, in 2024, they had to pay out £500,000 because a branch fell on somebody.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In my hand, I have a colander. I have a piece of paper. Yes, there you have one too. So I'm going to run it so you can see me. So I think what you do is you shine, you indicate, you tell me what to do, and I'll do it for you.
You never look at the sun directly.
Yep,
you
good.
allow the light to go through the colander, and that'll actually act as a pinhole camera and project images of the sun onto the piece of paper, and then you can look at the piece of paper and see the eclipse take place. Simple as that. You can do it also by using binoculars or a telescope and projecting an image through from them onto a piece of paper.
Yep.
That will work just as well. Or get a bucket of water, let it settle, and look in the bucket of water, and you'll see the image of the sun in the water, and then you can observe the eclipse that way.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. 10 to 11, you're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, Andy Burnham has previously shown support for rural and farming communities, saying that he intends to revisit the controversial inheritance tax changes introduced by his predecessor, which they've already watered down to some point. But
Yes,
not
they
enough.
changed the threshold, didn't they?
They did.
So what should farmers expect from the new Prime Minister? But more pressing, how are they dealing with this interminable heat wave?
Is it going to affect food prices, and are there going to be food shortages? Well, GB News national reporter Sophie Reaper is in Macclesfield, in the countryside, for us. Sophie, looking pretty... that grass isn't looking very green, if I can put it that way.
Not at all. Good morning to you both. You can see around me the impacts that this severe heat is having on our farms. This grass is just totally dead. And of course, that is having a huge impact on our farmers in what's already been a really trying couple of years for them. So joining us now is dairy farmer Danny Newton. Danny, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Look at this. I mean, how are you coping with this? Because, of course, as we know, this is what usually your lovely cows, which we can see in the background, what they would be eating. So what are you doing instead?
So currently you can see these are the milking herd behind us here. We're supplementing their diet basically with the winter ration. So what they would normally be eating during the winter months, forage that we've made earlier in the year, they're eating. So currently they're out in the field today. We're bringing them in earlier at night, earlier in the morning, so they can basically fill up on feed that's been produced earlier in the year. But generally that is earmarked for feeding during the winter rather than now.
And that's obviously going to have a huge impact on your profit margins, I would imagine.
Yes, yeah, more so it's a case of where is the food going to come from that we're feeding now that we need to replace later in the year. What's going to be available? This isn't localised to where we are in Cheshire. This is a nationwide drought, really. Yields have been suppressed throughout the whole agricultural sector. The yields on cereals are down, potatoes are down, straw is going to be at a premium, hay's already jumped up in price. So anything we need to replace what we're feeding now is going to cost more, which obviously affects our bottom line.
And of course, since this hot weather and since this drought has been taking place, we've had a new Prime Minister. Andy Burnham is now at the helm in number 10. So Keir Starmer didn't exactly do our farmers any favours. Inheritance tax, talks of land tax, and now, of course, this that you're having to deal with. Do you trust that our new Prime Minister will... He said he wants to hear what farmers has to say, but do you think he'll listen?
I think it's very easy to say what he intends to do. Keir Starmer promised things that he wouldn't give the inheritance tax, he wouldn't do this, he wouldn't do that. So I think it's too early to say whether we trust what Andy Burnham's going to deliver or not. He said he wants to listen. I think listening to the people on the ground is very important. We're the ones living this, farming the land. I think he needs to be conscious of the fact we're not just food producers. You know, we produce high quality food here in the UK. Paramount to national security is food security, and he needs to look at the bigger picture of not just food production but what we do in the countryside.
Danny, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. There you go. Very, very difficult times for our farmers. Will the new Prime Minister listen to them and what they're saying on the ground? Only time will tell.
Thank you, Sophie. And a DEFRA spokesperson says that our 25-year farming roadmap sets out a clear vision for the future so farmers can have the confidence one more to invest and feed the nation. Plenty more coming up on Britain's Newsroom after the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A warm and humid day for many of us, especially towards the south and the east. Rain or showers, especially towards the north and the west, with thunderstorms for some. It's actually a damp start to the day for Scotland, for Northern Ireland. Heavy and persistent rain. Showers, meanwhile, moving through parts of Wales and the west of England. And the rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland breaks it into showers with thunderstorms likely for Northern Ireland. These slow-moving storms could cause impacts through the afternoon and evening, especially given the time of year. Drier towards the east and southeast, and with some sunshine, and still another day with temperatures into the low 30s and high humidity. It's going to feel really quite warm. Meanwhile, not feeling warm at all across northern Scotland. Persistent rain and low cloud expected with a keen breeze from the east. Here are these lively showers across central and southern Scotland with some rumbles of thunder mixed in. Likewise, slow-moving thunderstorms continuing into the evening for Northern Ireland. Hit and miss showers, central and western England as well as Wales, interspersed by some brighter spells, but the best of the sunshine as we end the day, East Anglia and the southeast, with the warmth continuing overnight. Another humid, muggy night to come for many. Areas of clouds swirling around the United Kingdom and some showers popping up just about anywhere. Very little meaningful rainfall in the south and southeast where it's most needed, but there could be a few drops here and there. More persistent wet weather continuing for the north of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And a warm start to Wednesday, but actually during Wednesday we see this change in wind direction, west to northwesterlies, bringing a fresher feel. Still mostly dry for England and Wales, sunny spells, and aside from a few showers in the north and west, a mostly fine day. Scotland and Northern Ireland, meanwhile, damp weather continuing and feeding on the cool side, fresher conditions towards the southeast.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Vox Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome to Orla Santi by Domes Resorts, where we're celebrating with an incredible £60,000 to be won. Plus, we'll give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000. Don't miss your chance to win over £65,000 worth of prizes.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the cars.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time. But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
It is, excuse me, it is 11 o'clock on Tuesday, the 4th of August, live across the United Kingdom, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, some killers are to walk free from prison early.
Whether we could find an individual way, there simply isn't one. We can only work on offence type. And in this case, we have to look at manslaughter as a whole. We've been able to, as I say, remove rape and to remove child sex abuse, but we've not been able to remove manslaughter.
Well, rapists will be blocked from the prison early release scheme, but criminals guilty of manslaughter will not be, including those who killed PC Andrew Harper. Here's what the Prime Minister said 2 weeks ago.
I feel for the family it's an appalling crime that was committed. The main perpetrator will not be subject to any early release.
Yes, the Prime Minister has reached an uncomfortable compromise. Rapists won't be released early, but killers will. Will it be enough to save the collapsing prison system? Find out more with me very soon.
And breaking news, a mega dinghy carrying 157 illegal migrants caught fire in the Channel this morning. A major rescue operation is underway, and we will have the latest.
But you open it up, you'll be a wealthy country. You keep it closed, you're going to be a bankrupt country, which is what you are now. Essentially, you're a bankrupt country.
United States President Donald Trump tells GB News that Andy Burnham must open up the North Sea, and that he hopes to have a great relationship with our new Prime Minister.
I'm not going to tell him how to run his country, but I can tell you, immigration is an incredible problem for Europe. You're allowing people in that in many cases are not going to help you. I'm going to be nice. They're not going to help you.
I think the President's right, isn't he? Now, Burnham's on his holidays. Andy Burnham has gone away after just 15 days as Prime Minister. Do you agree with that?
Elsewhere this week, the Conservatives are setting out their plan for policing.
Yes, and as the Conservatives set out what they would do when it comes to policing, their leader, Kemi Badenoch, was out with officers from Surrey Police this morning on an early morning raid, seeing how officers tackle crime on the front line.
And is business booming this summer holiday in the contested sunniest place in the UK, the Isle of Wight?
Well, Cows Week brings around 100,000 visitors to the Isle of Wight. And what do they do when they get here? Well, they spend money in the local economy. I'll be chatting to business owners soon who say that they rely on weeks like this.
Concerning news, Andrew, about that migrant boat, 157 people on board. Where there was a fire, the outboard motor, most people have ended up in the water. Big rescue attempt underway.
And it's astonishing that so far it seems nobody has perished, which is extraordinary because you think how cold the sea is.
Yeah.
It was 6 in the morning, and because they landed in French waters, the migrants are going back to French hospitals. But it won't stop the people smugglers. They are loading up more and more people on these super extra large dinghies, and they are death traps.
And our Home and Security editor, Mark White, was telling us that because of increased French police and security forces further up the French coast, where the channel is narrower, the people smugglers are now moving further down the coast, where there are fewer authorities, but obviously it makes it longer crossing, more dangerous, so they're using bigger boats, which are even more dangerous. I mean, it is a reminder of how perilous that crossing is, and each individual migrant is taking their own life into their hands. The people smugglers also culpable, but when's it going to end?
Yeah, well, Nigel Farage put forward his plan yesterday. French didn't like it very much, but there's no surprise there. As ever, tell us what you think, send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much and good morning. The top stories: people jailed for rape, serious child sex offences and grooming will be excluded from the upcoming early prison release scheme the government's announced. It comes after Prime Minister Andy Burnham responded to backlash to the plan, which was initiated by the Starmer administration with the goal of easing prison overcrowding. Mr Burnham has also delayed the start of the scheme from September to October and said he wanted to go even further, but it was not possible without the prison system collapsing, putting the public at much greater risk, he said. The policy has been controversial since the outset, but returned to prominence earlier this month when it emerged a policeman's killers may be among those eligible for early release. PC Andrew Harper was killed in 2019 while responding to a quad bike theft in Berkshire. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch says the Labour government has been too slow to act.
Labour have been too slow to do this. Andy Burnham has been too slow. I put an amendment down on legislation to stop the release of rapists and paedophiles. Labour MPs voted against it. They're only doing this now because of the pressure which I and others, Conservatives and others, have been putting on them, and we will continue to do so. We do not want to see the early release of killers. I'm glad that the government wants to stop the release of rapists, but they need to get on with it, not just talk about it.
Justice Secretary Alex Norris says he understands the disappointment felt by many, but says it's the best the government can do at this time.
Without these changes, we run out of prison places in October or November of this year. Now, me as a new Justice Secretary, Andy Burnham as a new Prime Minister, have heard the concerns about some of the people possibly involved in this. So we paused it and we've looked again. We have been able to, as you said, remove rapists, to remove child sex abusers from scope of that release from prison. However, you know, we would like to have gone further, but we can't. This is as far as we can go and still have prison places. And I know that's very disappointing and upsetting to victims and their families, but it's the best we could manage at this time.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has called for emergency talks amid growing tensions between EU member states after almost 70,000 Moroccans poured into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta last week. Today, EU interior ministers have emergency talks by video conference to discuss the issue. The scenes in Ceuta have strained relations among some of the EU's 27 member states. In a letter to Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, von der Leyen praised his swift handling of the crisis. Meanwhile, pressure is building upon Andy Burnham to come up with a solution to the illegal migrant crisis in Britain, with over 2,000 arrivals since the beginning of his premiership. That's as a major air and sea rescue has taken place in the English Channel this morning after a so-called mega dinghy sank, tipping almost 160 illegal immigrants into the sea. Multiple British and French rescue vessels were called to the scene around 8 a.m. after the engine on the giant dinghy is reported to have caught fire. A total of 157 migrants ended up in the water and were pulled to safety by the arriving rescue ships. Medics from Boulogne-sur-Mer were helicoptered aboard rescue boats to treat the injured as they were landed aboard. Multiple migrants have suffered the effects of hypothermia, but at this stage there are no reports of any serious injuries. Meanwhile, President Trump exclusively told GB News he hopes to have a great relationship with Andy Burnham, but he also says that he must get control of energy and immigration.
I think we're going to have a very good relationship. We'll see. I'm not going to tell him how to run his country, but I can tell you immigration is an incredible problem for Europe. You're allowing people in that in many cases are not going to help you. I'm going to be nice. They're not going to help you.
In other news, NHS staff are facing a growing wave of racist abuse from patients, according to a new report. Patients have reportedly refused to be treated by a number of healthcare workers, stating their race was the reason why. The Society of Radiographers says incidents have risen noticeably over the past 18 months and is calling on the NHS to formally record and monitor racist abuse. Detectives investigating the fatal stabbing of a 21-year-old student in a North London park have offered a £20,000 reward for information on the whereabouts of a man they urgently wish to trace. The Metropolitan Police have also appealed directly to 22-year-old suspect Jordan Asije, urging him to do the right thing and hand himself in. The force released a picture of Mr Asije this morning, adding he's known to spend time in North London. Finbar Sullivan, a filmmaking student, was stabbed to death during a fight in Primrose Hill in the early evening of Tuesday, the 7th of April. Police said another man in his 20s also suffered injuries which were not life-threatening or life-changing. And researchers are warning NHS criteria for screening women under 50 for breast cancer are too narrow and are missing up to 95% of those at higher risk of developing the disease. They found the current guidelines set by the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence focus solely on inherited genes and not other factors such as lifestyle. Older women are offered routine mammogram scans to check their breasts, but under 50s do not get any breast screening unless they have a strong family history of the disease. Those are the latest headlines for now. Here's the finance.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
The pound will buy you $1.34 and €1.17. The price of gold, £3,013 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 10,893 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, is facing a lot of pressure now after it emerged that 2 men convicted over the 28 killing of police officer Andrew Harper, it outraged the nation, that killing, are eligible for early release from prison as soon as October.
Joining us in the studio is GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley. Olivia, a couple of weeks ago, the Prime Minister said that he was pausing this early release scheme while he took a look into it. What do you make of the compromise that he has reached today?
Well, it's an awkward compromise that he's reached today. Obviously, Andy Burnham wanted to go further. The Justice Secretary has said that he wanted to go further. He wanted to curtail this early release scheme almost entirely. Instead, what he's done is made exemptions for rapists, for example, and those accused of serious child sexual offences. What exactly constitutes a serious child sexual offence and what constitutes a mild child sexual offence, we will have to see. Hopefully that will be clarified soon. But killers, those convicted of manslaughter, including the killers of PC and Andrew Harper, will be released early. Now, just to put some numbers on it, 5,000 prisoners were going to be released in September. The date of that has now been pushed back. It's going to be October to give probation officers time to plan. That was a huge part of the problem in September 2024 when this early release scheme began. There was simply no plan in place for a lot of these offenders, and within a couple of days some of them had reoffended and were already back in prison. So Andy Burnham has pushed that timeline back from September to October, and 1,000 of these 5,000 prisoners now won't be released early. Now, just to put some more context on it, almost all prisoners are released early. It's just that the general timeline for that is 2/3 of their sentence. This early release scheme brings it down to half of their sentence. This was introduced by Shabana Mahmood back in 2024. So essentially what Andy Burnham has said is that those who are accused of these more serious offences, rape, serious child sexual offences, will now be released after probably 2/3 of their sentences. Those accused, convicted of more minor crimes will be released after half of their sentences. This obviously, particularly because of the case of PC Andrew Harper's killers, has incited public anger everywhere. It's incited the anger of Andy Burnham's backbenchers as well. But clearly Burnham, having looked at the figures, believed that the prison system would collapse in about November. That's what the MOD was saying, unless he took urgent measures. Again, putting some numbers on it, there are about 89,000 places available for prisoners. About 86,000 of those places have already been filled. So we are operating at very, very close to capacity.
And it seemed to be a technical argument that Alex Norris, the Justice Secretary, was making, which was that, of course, the killing of Andrew Harper was absolutely egregious. People really, really shocked. But the conviction was for manslaughter, and if everybody with manslaughter conviction was excused from this scheme, I've just looked up, I think there are 1,500 people in prison for manslaughter. Again, that would defeat the point of the early release scheme. Not enough prisoners would be allowed out to make way for new ones. So they say they can't make an exception for one single case when the crime is the same.
Yes, exactly. And let's just have a listen to exactly what the Justice Secretary said this morning.
We've looked again. We have been able to, as you said, remove rapists, to remove child sex abusers from scope of that release from prison. However, you know, we would like to have gone further, but we can't. This is as far as we can go and still have prison places. And I know that's very disappointing and upsetting to victims and their families, but it's the best we could manage at this time.
But I think they could have done more because they changed the law after the killing of PC Harper. They called it Harper's Law, so that emergency service workers who had killed the killers of a mandatory life sentence. They should have said, we're making an exception. He killed a policeman. These 2 men killed a police officer, so they are not coming out early. And then have the row.
Well, exactly. I mean,
intervene.
Legally it might have been difficult to do because you can't impose these laws retrospectively, so that made it a little bit awkward for the Prime Minister. I think what we heard from the Justice Secretary there, this is the best we could do, is a perfect illustration of how difficult Andy Burnham is going to find it, seeing the realities of these numbers, brushing up against his ideal policies time and time again. We're going to see the same with jury trials very soon, I
And, of course, we know, even before he was Prime Minister, he talked in Manchester, didn't he, about how shocked he was. He would do everything he could to keep these men in prison, and he's failed to do it.
Indeed. Well, there are no easy decisions, are there, in government? Olivia Utley, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Now, moving on, the Tory party is drafting a plan which would allow police forces across England and Wales to carry out basic investigative work. Well, don't they do that already?
Well, you'd think that was part of the job. Well, GB News' national reporter Will Godley can explain more. Will, good morning. What have you seen this morning?
Yes, Well, good morning to you. This morning, as part of the Conservatives announcing their policing plan and what they would do if they were in government, the leader of the Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch, went out with officers very early this morning on an early morning raid. Officers here at Surrey Police were informed of by neighbours that a man was suspected of drug dealing in the area, and so Kemi Badenoch and Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, went out on officers as they executed this warrant, and they found a number of controlled substances there, including what they suspected to be cocaine and cannabis, and they even found prohibited weapons as well at the property and the individual's car. Well, one man, as Kemi Badenoch and Chris Philp were out on this raid, was arrested on suspicion of possession with intent to supply. And Kemi Badenoch, starting very early this morning, joining officers, was keen to ask them about where money could best be spent to help them solve more crimes. This is really at the heart of their policing plan. The Conservatives have published some figures that say that 92% of crimes go unsolved, and 65% of the public believe police will not properly investigate crimes. Well, that's something Kemi Badenoch wants to sort, and this is why she went out on the raid. This is why she said she did earlier on.
It's very, very important that we see people suffer the consequences for committing crimes. So I was out with the police this morning on a dawn raid where a suspected Class A drug supplier was arrested, and it just highlights the need for the policy which Conservatives are pushing, which is that we do need more police officers. We want to see 10,000 more police officers across the country. We want live facial recognition so we can catch suspects faster. They are making so many people's lives a misery across communities all over our country, and it's not just households, it's businesses as well. The Conservatives have a plan to get policing working better than ever before, and one of the things I wanted to do today was actually be with the police and see how they go about doing their job, because you need to understand what they do so that you can help them as much as possible.
Well, this is all part of the Conservatives' Take Back Our Streets plan. They say it's a fully funded plan. Kemi Badenoch outlined the measures there. They say it would cost £800 million. And as I say, fully funded, and the Conservatives say it will solve an extra 36,800 crimes a year. But the Home Office say they are already heavily investigating in facial recognition technology, and they say they're already turning the tide on crime. They've also pledged an extra 13,000 officers by the end of this parliamentary session, but clearly the Conservatives don't think it's enough.
Will Godley in Surrey, thank you very much for that report.
Well, it's time for the Great British Giveaway now. Time's ticking on your chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash. And don't forget, you get a gold bar worth over £5,000, which Miriam says she would melt down.
No, I said I'd use it as a doorstop. I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Spend it. Spend it.
Walk into Sainsbury's and say...
Well, it'd be quite a big shop, £5,000. Have you got a big family?
Well, I have actually. They eat an awful lot. But even then, I think hopefully £5,000 would last a little bit longer than one shot.
Yeah. Take it to the off licence. That's the way to do it.
Well, Hayley Sparks has all the details.
Welcome to Augsust by Domes Resorts, where we're celebrating a golden summer. And you could be enjoying a golden year with an incredible £60,000 to be won. That's tax-free cash that you'll get to spend on anything you like. What would you do with it? You could relax knowing that we've got those day-to-day financial pressures sorted. Or find yourself celebrating in the lap of five-star luxury, somewhere like here, the Spritzeria. Plus, we'll give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 that you can keep or gift to a loved one. Don't miss your chance to win over £65,000 worth of prizes.
For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I don't think it's big enough to be used as a doorstop. It looks about the size of a credit card.
I don't know much about gold bullion.
No, I didn't either, obviously. You can't get a lot for £5,000, that's what we've learned. There you go.
She's got her eye on it, I'm telling you. Just be careful.
Not allowed to enter, I don't think.
No.
Well, coming up next, the Prime Minister has gone on holiday after just 15 days as in the job. Is he taking a leaf out of Never Hear Sakir's book?
God, who's he? He's like he never even existed. He's sat without trace, hasn't he?
Yes, he was fairly unremarkable, poor guy. Well, we'll be going through that and more with Paul Richards and Piers Pottinger here on GB News.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And tune in as your favourite presenters are live across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Tune in this Thursday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
11, you're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
I've got the panel back with us, the political commentator Piers Pottinger and the former Labour Special Advisor and columnist Paul Richards. Gentlemen, what are we talking about?
Well, should we start with Andy Burnham's holiday? Andrew and I have both enjoyed separate holidays in France.
Yep.
avoiding the wildfires, sadly. Well, glad we enjoyed the wildfires, just sad that they happened. But why can't Andy Burnham have a holiday as well?
I can't believe anyone is so mean-minded to suggest that he shouldn't be allowed a week or so away with his family and his missus. I mean, he's an ordinary bloke and he's having what ordinary blokes do, which is to go on a family holiday. The idea that you can't do that. And also, let's not forget, he's the Prime Minister, so he isn't just having a nice, relaxing time.
No.
There will be people around him bringing in messages. The nuclear codes will not be far away. You know, so even he's on holiday, but not really on holiday.
Will he have officials not far away?
Well, I think there'll be people certainly in communication with him all the time, just in case. He'll be getting the intelligence bulletins, any sort of crises that happen over the next few days. He'll be getting the updates on the small boats and all the rest of it. So, of course, he's on holiday, but not on holiday. But I hope he does get some time just to relax, because I want him back fresh, running the country in the autumn and sorting out our problems.
Because it is a gruelling job, because within seconds of him moving into number 10, he's making decisions.
Well, also, he has, I mean, whether you like them or not, hit the ground running with decisions. I mean, he's come back in 2 weeks of flurry, more than Starmer managed in 6 months, you know. So I think he does definitely need to just relax and regroup. We've got this conference season coming up, as you know, with all the party political conferences. So that we're onto the slipstream for that. So he'll be thinking about his big speech and how he projects forward. Will he call a general election? Will he not? You know, all of these decisions will be going on. So a little bit of time to relax. I think he might. Yeah, he's shown to be somebody who is brave. You know, takes big dramatic decisions.
Because running in that by-election in Makerfield was a big risk.
Well, of course. Well, leaving Westminster in the first place was a big risk, you know, and just getting off the treadmill 10 years ago. Then coming back, equally a risk. Then throwing everything to be Prime Minister, which he succeeded as doing. So the final throw of the dice might well be a snap general election. Who knows?
What do you think about that, Piers?
I think I've said all along that there will be an election early because he's going to be in a good position. He's still got a bit of a bounce. I mean, personally, he's gone on holiday, which I agree entirely with. Everyone should go on holiday. I think myself and a lot of people will wish he'd stay on holiday. Because,
I thought there'd be a sting in the tail,
and also, as such a northerner, by the way, and his great love of the north, why there are wonderful resorts like Scarborough, Blackpool. Why is he not there instead of going off to some foreign land? But anyway,
we do know he's abroad, but we don't know where.
We don't know where, but we know he's abroad. Anyway,
northern France.
But I definitely think he will.
It might be the north of somewhere.
I definitely think he will. It might be the good point. It'll be north somewhere. But he will probably call an election because reform is in a mess and is on decline. Kemi, although doing better, isn't making any real strides. He's got and the Greens are in a total mess. He will still be popular because none of these great things he's promised will have started by then, therefore I'd had no time to go wrong, which a lot of them will. Don't forget, his very first promise was, he'd said, standing in front of the door of 10 Downing Street, he said, I'm going to stop rough sleeping immediately, and the first thing I'll do is go through that door and instruct them to stop rough sleeping. Which is, I thought, was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. So whoever took those instructions, I'd love to know how they're getting on. While Mr. Burnham is not rough sleeping, he's probably in some five-star hotel knocking back the champagne.
And he didn't exactly solve rough sleeping in Manchester. Now, Paul, do you drive a car?
Occasionally, I don't like driving.
Right, but the cost,
it's unbelievable.
The money that's getting nicked from forecourts every day.
Well, the robbery is first of all the price of the petrol anyway. Because I mean, you get a shock, don't you, now when you have to fill up a car?
And could be £100.
Yeah, as I occasionally have to. I blame Donald Trump for this 100%. By the way, this war that he has created out of nothing. There wasn't a war before. The Straits were open, and Iran did not have a nuclear weapon. And now he's fighting a war to get back to the point we were at before the war. And in the meantime, ordinary people are paying at the pumps and at the tills for inflated food prices and petrol prices. And the whole it's without end in sight, by the way.
And of course, all the stuff they're nicking is putting the price up for everybody else.
Of course. I mean, you know, it is theft, and nobody's exonerating anyone for doing it, but you can understand why people are trying to get away with this crime because of the incredible cost of being imposed upon them.
But it could be stopped by the garages very simply. In France, for example, example, you have to put your credit card in a machine before it'll allow you to use any petrol. And you could do it here on every forecourt. I mean, it's very simple. But they don't even need CCTV. If you can't actually get petrol out until you've put a card in, then it'll stop theft completely. And it's worked in France. For once, there's something the French do well that we should be doing here. And I don't know why the garages don't do it, quite frankly.
The danger is, like the shoplifting, it won't be individuals doing it because they can't quite afford it. It'll be organised gangs doing it to then resell.
I'm sure they're
Well, yes, what's interesting is that the amount of fuel stolen in terms of the litres hasn't really changed much. It's just obviously the value.
The value is much higher.
I drive a diesel car, and I think last time I filled up, it was something like 174 pence a litre, but I think in April it hit £2 at one point. Absolutely extraordinary.
But it's also interesting. I mean, years and years ago, everyone was getting very excited about biofuel and how we'd all be driving cars with old chip fat in them. I mean, what's happened to that?
Doesn't the King have a car like that?
Well, I think some people do.
He has a sports car, doesn't he?
But it doesn't seem to, the technology doesn't seem to have advanced very much on that front.
Yeah. You could always not have a car like me. He says
you live in London.
I do. I do.
It's very different when you live rurally. It really is. You can't really get anywhere.
I know.
I quite like driving, though. I do really enjoy driving.
You don't like driving?
I hate driving. I've never driven on a motorway.
Never?
I passed my test in 1985.
And you've never driven on a motorway?
Age 17. I've never driven a car. I mean, I've been on a motorway in a car, but someone else driving.
Because you find it too scary?
Too scary.
And I don't drive.
Absolutely terrifying.
You don't?
No. My family stopped me. Because I was such a bad driver.
Yeah, I'm bad.
And I only took my test when my first child was born. And ever since, and while I was driving, I terrified a lot of people around the country.
So did you drive too fast, or were you just careless?
Well, I didn't really pay too much attention to it. I was always thinking about other things.
I drive too slow. My wife keeps telling me to speed up.
I was fast as well.
Right.
Very fast.
If we ever go on a school trip, I know I am going to be driving.
Certainly not these two, and I never drive. So certainly not me. I don't think I've driven a car for 5 years.
Goodness me.
Well, you're the designated driver, Miriam.
Yes.
There you are.
And as the youngest, you'll have the most expensive insurance.
We can all go and have a decent drink.
I think I'm past that point. But,
okay.
Yes. Anyway, I'm speechless. We better get some news.
You're not speechless, Miriam. You're never speechless. Here is your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories this hour. People jailed for rape, serious child sex offences and grooming will be excluded from the upcoming early prison release scheme the government's announced. It comes after Prime Minister Andy Burnham responded to backlash to the plan initiated by the Starmer administration with the goal of easing prison overcrowding by putting it on pause and launching an urgent review. A major air and sea rescue has taken place in the English Channel this morning after a so-called mega dinghy sank, tipping almost 160 illegal migrants into the sea. Multiple British and French rescue vessels were called to the scene around 8 a.m. after the engine on the giant dinghy is reported to have caught fire. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has called for emergency talks amid growing tensions between EU member states after almost 70,000 Moroccans poured into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta last week. Today, EU interior ministers will have emergency talks by video conference to discuss the issue. And President Trump exclusively told GB News he hopes to have a great relationship with Prime Minister Andy Burnham, but says that he must get control of energy and immigration.
I think we're going to have a very good relationship. We'll see. I'm not going to tell him how to run his country, but I can tell you, immigration is an incredible problem for Europe. You're allowing people in that in many cases are not going to help you. I'm going to be nice. They're not going to help you.
Those are the latest headlines. More from me at 12 o'clock.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Now, and of course, we've got Good Afternoon Britain, and look who we've got Mark. Oh, it's you again.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that, Andrew. It's lovely to see you as well. It's always lovely to see you, Andrew. You're always so polite. Yeah, you've got our team, our old people today. The youngsters are a bit poorly.
Team wisdom and experience.
Oh, is that what we are?
Yes, thank you. I
Thank you
like
very
that.
much,
Yes. Yeah, the young folk are not a bit poorly today, so Mark and I are standing in. But we have got an amazing show. We are obviously kicking off with the rapists being released early, but people convicted of manslaughter. Rapists not being released early, but people convicted of manslaughter getting out of jail early.
And actually, for me, it would be more concerning as well, for the vast majority of people right across the country are the recidivists, the people that are responsible for the vast majority of crimes that go on and just reoffend and reoffend, usually to feed the drug habits. They blight whole communities. People know when a burglar or a car thief or mobile phone thief has been released back into their midst because they're responsible for so many different crimes.
Yeah.
These are the people that are being released.
Yeah, I know.
And I was reading the other day that because so many people have been released early, there's now an exceptional number of prison recalls because they're breaching their conditions.
Of course. Yeah.
So for every 100 people being released, 101 people are being recalled to prison. So negating the whole point of letting people out early.
And crime figures are going to go way up as a response. I mean, they should just be building these pop-up prisons. And people say, well, you can't have a pop-up prison because you can't secure people. Well, you can to an extent. You can put the less, serious offenders, the lower risk individuals in pop-up prisons and keep the more serious offenders in the maximum
I was saying to Miriam earlier, Mark, near where I am in North London, there's a huge former police station which has stood empty for 10 years. They've done nothing with it. It's an absolute scandal by the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Why can't they utilise these buildings?
Well, they could.
I mean, they might need a little bit of TLC, but they are prisons. If they're not very comfortable,
that's the thing.
too bad.
And the thing is, we keep talking about what about their circumstances, what about them, what's happening to them, what about the victims? We keep forgetting there are victims in all this. And the fact that domestic abusers are going to be released, I find terrifying.
Yeah.
They could go and knock on the doors of the people they have abused. Because if we are relying on the probation service, we know they're on their knees as well. It's in crisis. So.
Oh, completely. And the other big scandal, of course, is the electronic tags that we're told people will wear. 9,000 people on electronic tags have not been properly monitored. So, is that any kind of safeguard? Not really.
No, that's the trouble.
We're also taking a very deep dive into that horrific Athens suitcase murder.
That is an extraordinary
Finding out more of the details on that one as well, so you don't want to miss that one. And obviously we're talking about going on holiday when you've only been in the job for 2 weeks.
No Prime Minister of this country has ever gone on holiday so quickly. Somebody's done a list somewhere.
I have to say, I'm pretty shocked.
Theresa May was on holiday within 4 weeks.
You just knuckle down. You've wanted that job for so many years. You finally get it.
And you go on
Put the hard yards in, surely.
I'm not agreeing with you.
Right. But, we've had that
agreeing with
discussion.
you.
I won't be huffed.
Once an MP,
taking lots of time off.
Yes, indeed. I feel ganged up. We're very much looking forward to your show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Coming up next, tributes continue to pour in for the journalist and broadcaster Rod Liddle, who sadly died aged 66.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. I can't believe it.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Whilst in parts of the southeast it's still hot and humid today, further north the bigger talking point is the showery rain, which is going to be quite heavy, quite thundery at times as well. There's an area of low pressure which is moving northeastwards across northern parts at the moment, and it's the frontal structure associated with this which has already brought a fair amount of rain to parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and we'll continue to see some hefty bursts of thundery rain through the afternoon in these places as well. Could see some relatively high rainfall totals, blustery winds, large hail as well, something to watch out for. Further south across England and Wales, a few showers in the west, staying dry in the east, and it's here where we'll have the highest temperatures, 31, 32 Celsius, feeling hot and humid. More hefty rain to come through the end of the day across northern parts of Scotland in particular. This is where the rain's going to be most persistent. Further south across parts of Northern Ireland, central eastern parts of Scotland, this is where the showers have the greatest chance of turning thundery. Some intense downpours, hail like I mentioned, and gusty winds. A few showers for parts of England and Wales, always more likely across central and western parts, so some eastern areas towards Lincolnshire, Yorkshire should see some showers in the southeast staying dry, and here it should stay dry overnight with a fair amount of clear skies. Elsewhere, bursts of showery rain here and there. The more persistent rain across parts of northern Scotland will edge a little bit further northwards, really just affecting Orkney and Shetland. It is going to be a warm night, especially in the southeast. Temperatures holding up in the high teens. Elsewhere, many places holding up in the mid-teens for most. Then into tomorrow, a bit of showery rain here and there to start. But actually, as we go through the day, heavier rain pushing across parts of Northern Ireland and more intense thundery downpours developing across central and eastern parts of Scotland. Further south and especially towards the southeast, whilst it won't be anywhere near as hot as today, it's still going to be largely sunny. Bye-bye.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 19 minutes to 12. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, I think this is incredibly sad news. I thought he was a terrific guy. The journalist and broadcaster Rod Little died yesterday at the age of 66, only 66, after a very short illness.
Yes, he was a former editor of the BBC Radio 4's Today programme. He went on to become one of Britain's best-known newspaper columnists, writing for the Sunday Times, The Sun, presenting on Times Radio and then latterly The Spectator.
And which is quite a gift to combine writing for 3 completely different audiences and to hold them captive each week, which is quite a gift to do.
He was very gifted.
Let's speak to Claire Fox, Baroness Claire Fox. She's a member of the House of Lords who knew Rod Little rather well. Claire, we're all of us taken aback that we've lost him so young. But why do you think he spoke with such conviction to so many people? As I say, he managed to keep a big audience in the Sunday Times, completely different audience in the Spectator, and an entirely different audience again in the Sun newspaper.
I think that he was beholden to no one. I mean, I can't believe that I'm even here talking about this real tragedy, because Rod was such a life force that I can't believe he's not with us, you know, and it's such a shock. But he had this sort of sense of irreverence. I love the fact, and of course I would, that he saw himself very much on the left. He was a social democrat. He wasn't somebody who was easy to pigeonhole, despite the fact that people have tried. Because what he always did was he was just curious and persistent in asking awkward questions of everyone and anyone, beholden to no one. And I think that from the point of view of readers, and also from the point of view of listeners to his radio programme, which I was often on, they recognised in him somebody who was prepared to speak on their behalf in terms of pushing and saying things that, and probing about things that were just considered to be verboten in today's world. And he was fearless in not caring whether that made him unpopular or not.
And one of the reasons he was able to get away with saying such shocking things was his humour. His columns were laugh out loud funny. And I think Tim Shipman was writing in The Spectator yesterday that he always avoided reading Rod Little's column while eating his lunch because he would be liable to spit out his sandwich. I mean, he just had this incredible wit, didn't he, that warmed you to whatever he was saying, even if it was deeply shocking.
He was hilarious. That's the truth of the matter. In a shocking way, in that way that, you know, the great satirists are, you know, where you go, oh, my God, he can't have said that. But you're laughing at the same time because you know that he's kind of hit some nail on the head in a way that you kind of, you know, almost think, oh, my God, I can't believe he did that. But, you know, on all these kind of very big issues, you know, the whole controversy around biological sex versus transgender ideology, for example, he was ruthless in dismantling that, in taking it apart. On very serious issues, like October the 7th, the fact that the left, his erstwhile allies and tribe, were prepared to wave Hamas flags. He just couldn't believe it, and he therefore was merciless. But there was something also very humane about him. I mean, he understood why women cared about the sex-gender question, because he understood something about women's rights. He actually got under the skin of what Brexit was about long before we even voted for Brexit. He could see that the impertinence of the EU dictating laws to ordinary people in this country who had no right to, argue against or vote back against those laws was something that was an outrage. And so he was, in that sense, a real anti-establishment figure. His love for the Social Democratic Party, a very small party, run by William Houston, but with a very kind of admirable, soulful tribe of people who are passionate about it, even if it's very small. The reason why it was interesting that Rod was prepared to be associated with that was, in some ways, it was a bit of a no-hope campaign, right? And you could say, well, why was he hanging around with them? He was never going to get. He actually stood in an election for them, didn't stand a chance. But he believed passionately things. And in that sense, it's just such a rarity. He didn't pretend to be a neutral voice, but he was actually genuinely fair.
Yes.
And the other thing is that, and everybody has said this since he's done, I would say everybody, there's this horrible tribe of trolls on social media who are not saying it, but the vast majority of people brilliantly are saying he was kind. He loved his family. He loved people. He was interested in the football fans that he went to matches with, even the opponents of his beloved Millwall. He had great insight into. He just was a people's person. And in that sense, I just think it was a rarity that he was fair to people, but ruthless in lampooning the outrageous, the dangerous ideology that has taken over much of society, but never in a way that you felt that you didn't get, everybody got a fair shot of understanding what he meant.
Yeah. Claire Fox, a wonderful tribute.
Yeah,
Thank
it really
you
is.
so much.
Yeah, I mean, he was the antithesis of woke, wasn't he?
He was. Our paths did cross a few times, Andrew, and I was just looking back at WhatsApp messages with him last night, and I was once speaking at a dinner, and the topic was my fantasy manifesto. What policies would I implement? And I wanted a bit of humour, so I texted him and said, if you were making this speech, what would you say? What would be your fantasy policies? And so he said, the criminalisation of cats, a lycra tax on cyclists, doubled if they're wearing stupid goggles. Fines for anyone who uses the term lived experience, doubled if they also use the terms exclusionary or allyship. Fly tippers to be made to eat whatever they have deposited. BBC staff to go on diversity awareness courses to learn about people who aren't middle-class graduates. That was just classic.
I know.
Straight-up reply.
Typical. And that'd have been come off his pen within seconds.
Exactly. And I did credit him, of course, but I got lots of laughs for that, and it set me up very nicely. So rest in peace, Rod.
Now, up next, we're off to the Isle of Wight, which they say is the sunniest spot in the UK. And talking of sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heat is building and intensifying across central and eastern parts of Europe through the next few days. Fine for many parts of Europe, but the risk of thunderstorms for the Alps and a few scattered elsewhere in many parts. I think for the Canary Islands, mostly dry with sunny spells and feeling hot here. 1 or 2 showers and thunderstorms for northern and eastern parts of Spain, otherwise hot sunshine. But the temperatures across Italy into Croatia, more especially into Hungary and Bulgaria, really quite high for the time of year, up into the high 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
4 heat waves, weeks without meaningful rain. As the UK heads towards one of its hottest summers on record, the pressure is showing here in Sussex, in the fruit growing across these fields.
Well, the impact of the heat is already visible here. This local grower says that if these extreme temperatures continue, this year's harvest may well be smaller in size.
I don't think there's been another period like this in the history. 3 years ago, we had a tremendous heat wave in the middle of harvest. We were unable to get the fruit to cool down quickly enough. The following year we had a very, very light crop, and the same again this year.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's only all-female chess team, called She Plays to Win, has been promoted to the game's top division, only to be told they must recruit a male player to compete. Now, league rules require every First Division team to include at least one male and one female player, meaning that one of the team's female players could lose her place. I'm joined in the studio by the She Plays to Win chess players, Anusha and Alicia. Great to see you both this afternoon.
Thank you for
So
having us.
sorry about what's going on. You've been promoted, but you might have to lose one of your teammates. What's going on here?
So essentially, we have fallen victim to this rule that She Plays to Win, our team, has been promoted to the First Division in our league, but now must have a male player as part of the rules.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, that drought is due to long periods, record periods actually, with no rainfall and high temperatures. The areas that are affected, as you say, over half of England, half of the UK affected by that. The areas being East Anglia, Hertfordshire, the whole of London, Thames Valley, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, Devon and Cornwall, the West Midlands and Wessex, covering Dorset, Somerset, Wiltshire and Gloucestershire. So a huge area impacted by that drought. There is also that amber heat health alert still in place here. That's in place until tomorrow. And temperatures today in the south could reach up to 35 degrees. So people here in Bognor Regis coming to the coast to cool down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Sailors? More than 7,000 sailors are taking to the Solent today as Cowes Week, the world's oldest and most prestigious sailing regatta, gets into full swing. Business must be booming.
Well, GB News South England reporter Isabel Fekelak is in the Isle of Wight for us. The island of Isle of Wight, of course, Isabel, which claims to be the sunniest spot in the entire United Kingdom, much disputed by other parts of the country, including Norfolk.
Well, good morning to you both. It's certainly been a beautiful few days here so far. The weather's definitely coming out for Cowes Week. As you say there, it's the world's oldest and largest sailing regatta of its kind, and it brings around 100,000 visitors here to the island. Of course, an island that throughout much of the year will not look as busy as it does now, the high street booming here, but for certain months during the summer and certain weeks like Cowes Week, like when the Isle of Wight Festival is on, businesses rely on the boost that they get from tourism. In general, the island is slightly deprived. 3 of the neighbourhoods here are among the top 10% most deprived neighbourhoods in England, but they certainly do live off days like this, weeks like this. We're going to go and chat to a business owner. This is a beautiful vintage shop, and of course it's got lots of old sailing memorabilia, and sailors will come here, spend money in the summer, and they will rely on times like these. This is Kirby, who owns the shop. Hello, Kirby.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on today. Now, of course, it's booming here on the high street. Lots of people around. Are you feeling the boost?
Oh, it's a fabulous week. Yeah, there's a great buzz this year. It's really good.
And of course, this place, Cowes, is a seasonal town. It's a seaside town, and you rely on these summer months to get you through the year in terms of business. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. Yeah, it's a very, very long winter when you're a seaside town. So we're okay up to Christmas, and then there's nothing until March. So you've got to make the money in the summer.
And are you getting lots of customers this week?
It's fabulous. It's wonderful. Yeah, it's been a really, really good 200th anniversary. It's great.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll be chatting to lots of businesses who say that they rely on the island is isolated, but they rely heavily on tourism. We've seen 4 heat waves. That's been a brilliant boost for the island. And weeks like this, Cows Week, especially the fact that it's the 200th Cows Week, so it's bigger and better than ever. Definitely seeing the boost for businesses here in Cows.
Isabel in Cowes, thank you very much for that report.
Do you think Norfolk is sunnier than the Isle of Wight?
I don't know. I'd have to look at the data. They're both pretty sunny. Suffolk, slightly to the south, been unbelievably
There is a
sunny.
fierce debate about it.
Is there?
Yeah. The Isle of Wight insist it's them.
Well,
I know when I covered a story in the Isle of Wight 25, 30 years ago, they said, this is the sunniest spot in the British Isles, and I thought this is a hugely contentious point.
Well, gbnews.com/your.
It's all very sunny at the moment, of course.
Well, that's it from Britain's Newsroom. We'll be back tomorrow morning. But up next, good afternoon, Britain. It says here with the old timers.
But we didn't write that.
We didn't write that, Mark and Dar.
No.
We think you're superb.
We do. So we'll be back tomorrow. And it also says, thanks, Bev.
The wrong part.
That must have been written a long time ago.
Yes, auto cue malfunction. But we are still here. Over to you, Mark and Dawn.
Thank you very much. Great show. We've got a great show coming up as well. We are, of course, continuing the debate about that early release.